I want to start by getting some of the facts out there. There is no data to suggest that localities with community trust policies have more criminal activities than others. In fact, hundreds of local law enforcement agencies throughout the United States have adopted community trust policies. And across the country, these local police departments, the ones that my Republican colleagues are so quick to claim that they support, report that trust policies actually reduce crime. Recent comprehensive studies have supported those claims statistically, showing that community trust jurisdictions are demonstrably safer than their counterparts. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a sampling of those different studies for the record.
Without objection.
We know that victims and witnesses are much more likely to report crime and cooperate with investigations and prosecutions when they believe that there is little or no risk of deportation if they reach out. Moreover, we know that abusers will use an individual's immigrant status to intimidate them into staying silent. Local law enforcement relies heavily on these victims and witnesses to prevent and punish criminal activity. So, Chief Batista, let me turn to you. I don't want my colleagues to take my word for it. Can you help us understand why jurisdictions with community trust policies in place experience less crime and why their residents feel safer?
Yes, ma'am. Chairman McClintock, Ranking Member Jayapal. What I've seen in my history is that time and again in our communities, when we embrace immigrants and make them feel and be a part of our normal life, that they behave in those same manners, in that they cooperate with law enforcement, and that they no longer are victims that live in the shadows. One of the greatest concerns I have in that situation is that a victim that does not come forward just makes a perfect victim. And I don't think anyone in this room, and certainly no one in law enforcement, ever supports that occurring to anyone in our country.
One of the studies that I submitted into the record found that jurisdictions that adopted sanctuary policies experienced a 52 to 62% reduction in the domestic homicide rate for Hispanic women. Chief Batista, does that statistic track with your experience as a law enforcement officer in jurisdictions that have those kinds of policies?
Yes, it does.
Domestic violence accounts for approximately 15% of all violent crimes, but it often goes unreported. How do community trust policies help domestic violence victims feel more comfortable coming forward?
In the same way, ma'am, in that when we respond on a call for assistance from a victim of domestic violence, we want them to know that their status in the United States is not our primary concern. Our concern at that point is their safety and their welfare. And that has been our guiding principle since I was in Arizona and certainly in California, and I've seen that it works.
I really appreciate that. Chief Batista, you've worked in law enforcement for nearly 4 decades, both in Arizona, most recently in California. Have you seen a difference in how welcoming those states are towards immigrants?
Yes.
And can you compare your engagement with communities of color in Santa Monica and in Mesa?
I'll tell you that as a whole in Arizona, it was much more challenging in that the state's immigration laws made it difficult for local law enforcement to build a relationship in those circumstances. And I'd attended many meetings with immigrant communities, and it felt as though in those meetings, folks were just trying to get by, trying to survive. The difference that I've experienced in Santa Monica in Los Angeles is that their immigrant communities are forthright and willing to come out and engage and be a part of the social fabric of neighborhoods. And their kids and the encouragement that they receive is not just to be able to get through high school, but to be thinking about what college, what university they're going to go to and what profession are they going to pursue. And it just feels as though folks are more welcoming and understanding and wanting to achieve the American dream just like everyone else.
Just like everyone else. Can you discuss how passing immigration reform, which brings undocumented individuals out of the shadows and regularizes their immigration status, would actually improve the job you're trying to do around local policing and national security?
Community policing is foundational precept, is trust. I mentioned it earlier. And so having them come out of the shadows, like I said, normalizes their behaviors in our neighborhoods, in our cities, and makes it so that that communication, that ability to understand what's going on at the neighborhood level is improved. And I can't say enough about how it will improve our ability to mitigate threats at even the national level.
Thank you, Chief Batista, for getting those facts out there. I think it's clear our words matter, and it's important that we discuss these issues carefully. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.